long as I can tell it, I didn't know.
Yes, yes.
You got one.
I ain't, I don't know.
No, you can toss it. I printed another one, so I couldn't find that one.
There it
Like, where did it
You
go?
found it now.
Yeah, where did it go? There it is.
Don't put it in front of me, I'll snatch it up.
You can take minutes on it.
Well, they'll have it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Text me.
You don't have seconds.
I think that's what
No, I think so. That's why we didn't get anything off of it. I thought it was passed off this one.
Iowa Parish School Board meeting will come to order. Mr. King leads us in prayer and Mr. Newtown leads us in the pledge.
Most gracious Father in heaven, once again, we thank you for the opportunity for us to settle ourselves. Guide us in our decision making, Father. And let's do best for the children and other people in our system, Lord. These blessings we ask in your most precious name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do a roll call. Randy Rance.
Here.
Judith Ann McKee. Here. Melinda Ballard.
Here.
Baron Glass. Maria Bass.
Here.
Gary Castles.
Here.
James King.
All right. Item A is the executive committee report.
Reviewed everything turned out looked good. The sales taxes were up again this month, or this past month, 24%. For the year, we were up over 400,000 for the year, and that's really great. So keep shopping at home.
What a blessing.
All right. Item B is approve the June 14th, 2021 board meeting minutes and the June 24th, 2021 special meeting minutes. Got a motion, got a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye. All right, item C is approve updated operational guidelines for 2021-2022 school year.
All right. This is hot off the press. So your copy looks like this. Just thought it might look a little easier for you to have it all condensed. But we do have, so you can either follow along here or you can follow along on the screen. But we basically took last year's plan and we received guidance from the Louisiana Department of Education and the CDC. So there are some things that we don't have any control over, and then there are some things that we do have control over. It's different this year in that most of the stuff is not a mandate that was made into a law. It's recommendations, and the local board makes the decision as to how they're going to enforce it. So I'll tell you the things that you can decide or the things that you can't decide. But we met, I guess the plan, the guidance was delivered 2 Thursdays ago, and then we met on it last Wednesday with the district leaders and the school principals and assistant principals, and kind of got feedback about what worked, what didn't work, and gathered a consensus about what to present to you today. So this year's plan is called Ready to Achieve. That's the state's lingo on it, and it's an operations plan rather than a reopening plan. So, and like I said, it's based on updated guidance from LDOE and CDC. So, first thing is just school planning for COVID-19 cases. Again, they say we should expect that we're going to have COVID cases. And so it is not gone, and so we know that it will be something we're having to deal with this school year. Probably very similar to what we dealt with last year, and we made it through, so we have, no doubt we can make it through again. But we should expect that there will be students and possibly staff who expose others. Individuals who are in close contact of a positive case, which the definition is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, may be identified and required to quarantine for up to 14 days. So that is not anything we can do anything about. It's 14 days, and that's what the CDC said. There are some instances where you could back it up to 7 to 10, but that would be only if masks are worn. And so we'll address that later on, and I'm assuming that y'all will be in agreement with us that, you know, we don't want to require masks. So the 14 days is what it looks like. Close contacts who were previously diagnosed with COVID-19 are basically free for 90 days. So after you've had it, you don't have to quarantine if you're exposed within 90 days, as long as you're not symptomatic. And then those who are fully vaccinated, which is 2 weeks after the final dose, will not be required to quarantine unless they develop symptoms of some sort. So for anybody who is vaccinated, they won't, if you're close contact, doesn't matter, you're good to stay at school. So one big difference is the use of sick days. For the 21-22 school year, we'll return to our regular sick leave policy. The COVID days have expired, and so they're no longer given to us. School employees who are not vaccinated and required to isolate or quarantine due to exposure to COVID-19 will be required to use their personal sick days. Or if you have 12-month employees who have vacation days, but they'll be required to use their own sick days if they're exposed and not vaccinated. Overall guidelines that we have in protective measures in the school setting, we will continue to try our best to social distance and maintain small groups of individuals as much as possible. We'll monitor students and staff for symptoms of fever, cough, shortness of breath, or sore throat, and we'll practice frequent environmental cleaning and hand washing. Guidelines for closing schools stay the same, that if we have to close school, that decision will be made by me and the local medical department, regional medical director will advise on that. We did not have to close schools at all last year, so I don't, hopefully don't foresee that happening. But there are all those factors that go into, that we take into account. So social distancing measures that we're recommending at our school is to continue to remove the unused desks and furniture so that you can space people out. Establish distance between the teacher's desk and student's desk. Identify and utilize large spaces as much as possible so that you can physically distance. And for teachers to maintain social distancing guidelines and teach from one location. Basically just be aware of your surroundings and not hover over each other and kind of keep your distance from each other, especially if you're not vaccinated. Transition recommendations, we still have the additional time for transitions. One thing that we found that worked very well last year was that we designated kind of flow paths, and so everybody walks down the hall and enters a certain way and exits a certain way, and so you're not all jumbled up at your entrances or like at the high school in the stairwells. So that seemed to work very well and kept everybody from mingling too much. Plan staggered class changes to decrease the number of students in the hallways. Same thing, with breakfast and recess. And each school kind of has a plan for what works best at their school, but those things are taken into account. At any time I'm talking, y'all can stop and ask me a question if I'm running through. But a lot of this is the same. Student drop-offs and pickup processes. Students will enter and exit the same way we did last year in single file lines and try to keep the flow of traffic moving in a single direction. We will continue to limit visitors in the school building except under extenuating circumstances, especially during high traffic times like drop off and pickup. So that seemed to really help with people dropping their kids off and them entering the building as opposed to everybody hanging out in the foyer before and after school. So visitors will be allowed, but only for scheduled meetings or official school events. So it won't be as tight as it was last year, but we are going to try really hard to keep the number of people limited who are in school. Establish hand hygiene stations at the entrance of the facility for students, employees, and visitors. So we'll continue to push the hand sanitizer. And of course, encourage families to drive their children to school if possible, because that will reduce the number of students on the buses. Large gatherings and extracurricular activities, these are the recommendations, is that attendees are encouraged to maintain appropriate physical distancing. All unvaccinated attendees are encouraged to wear a face covering. Students and teachers are encouraged to wash hands before and after events. Field trips can occur if following transportation requirements, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's going to require wearing masks. And that they asked us for outdoor field trips to be prioritized. So last year we didn't take field trips. This year we will, but we will encourage those that are outside so that they're not, you know, we won't say no to field trips. We'll just encourage that. And of course, with transportation, they'll only have to wear their masks on the bus. Outside visitors will only be allowed for scheduled meetings and official school events. So if you have like an IEP meeting or you need to meet with the teacher, then we would be able to do those, but we would do those only by schedule. And of course, you know, follow the protocols for those visitors. Yeah.
How can you verify that a person has not been vaccinated?
Yeah, and you can't ask.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is to
I'm
that.
gonna tell you, they're gonna lie.
Yeah. So you just, you can't call them out on it, you know, you just have to take them for their word, and then I keep, of course I'm vaccinated, but if I weren't, I would keep my distance from them, I would practice those social distancing measures and kind of protect myself.
Okay, like I've been vaccinated. I don't know where my card are.
Well, yeah, I know where mine is. And I took a picture of mine on my phone too, so I can show anybody if I ever needed to.
Well, I done it.
Yeah.
I'm vaccinated, but
Yeah, it's an issue. It's something you just have to kind of trust, but then at the same time, you have to, you know, protect yourself, keep your social distance from. All right, so athletics, band, and vocal music. This is a big change because, you know, last year we were not allowed to do a whole lot with music and with band and choir. So it says that the athletic activities will follow the LHSAA guidelines, and I have that linked here. They have not been updated since the spring, so we're assuming we'll go on what we were doing in the spring, which was recommending masks, but you don't, I mean, we're not policing it and not requiring it. It says outdoor and indoor spectator capacity is set forth by the fire marshal, and we're very accustomed to dealing with that, and we never ran into any issues where we were anywhere near capacity. And then the band and choral activities have to follow guidance from the National Federation of State High School Associations. So they encourage, of course, as much as possible outdoors. So we're super glad to have those restrictions lifted. So symptom monitoring, symptoms should be monitored at home. We'll no longer have to take everybody's temperature when they enter the building or enter the classroom, so I know that would be a huge relief for our teachers.
Yeah, because they're not nurses.
I know. They were taking temperatures and they were checking off all those symptoms. You no longer have to do that. We just ask parents to do that at home. And if an individual ends up having 100.4 fever, we ask them to stay at home. And then, of course, if during the day we find out and they take their temperature, then they would be sent home. But it says staff and students should not come to school. They should notify school officials if staff or students become sick with COVID symptoms, if they test positive for COVID, or have been exposed to someone with COVID symptoms, or a confirmed or suspected case. Students should not come to school if fever is reduced by taking fever-reducing medication within the last 24 hours. And that's just a best practice, is that, you don't, medicate them and send them on. I know. You're okay.
Kind of like you have a shower.
I know. The last bullet is just one difference, that since Kelly Early Childhood Center operates under a different set of guidelines, we did put this in here that they do have to check symptoms upon arrival and twice during the day, and that's all per Head Start guidelines. So theirs are a lot more stricter than ours are.
So they still gotta be
So
nurses.
they still have to be nurses. Yes, yes. Again, this is very similar to last year's plan. What if a student becomes sick at school? We have an isolation area that's set up that we can keep the kid or adult with supervision there. That we clean and disinfect the surfaces in the isolation area after they've gone home. In the event that the student, staff member, or visitor is presumed to be positive, then the school nurses will go ahead and start doing the contact tracing and make decisions around isolation, quarantine, and return to school. Again, we just want parents to know that if their kid is sick at school, it's their obligation to come get the kid from school if they're sick.
I got a
And,
question.
yes.
Can the nurses at the schools perform the quick test on?
There is something that we could sign up to do that. There's a lot of paperwork and red tape that would be involved with that. And our nurses are off this summer, so I've not had a conversation with them about if that's something we want to tackle this year. But Rebecca, have they mentioned anything to you?
We haven't had that conversation.
Yeah. I would be super surprised if that's something they want to add to their plate, is giving the test. So, but some districts are, some districts are doing it. What are y'all's thoughts?
You can still get them here at the doctor's office, right? The doctor.
I don't know how accurate they are to begin with.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know. Some of them are more accurate than others.
It's definitely a conversation we'll have when they come back. I just, like I said, this all came down quickly, and so we were just trying to get this in place.
Quickly help you.
Yeah, they can. I think you can get them pretty much. I've got it.
No, absolutely.
I've had a vaccine inside and to check, but I mean, I know I took one of my kids to the emergency care in Gina Mother's Day, and they did a COVID test that day, and we had the results that day.
Really?
So, it was negative. They tested him for all kinds of stuff. So. All right, and so environmental cleaning and personal hygiene. Here's the big hurrah here, is that masks are not required inside Caldwell Parish schools or buildings. Those who have not been vaccinated or feel more comfortable wearing masks are encouraged to continue doing so. And that's basically the guidance that we used during summer school or summer camp, and it seemed to work pretty well. I think we did have a few kids who wore masks, may have had some teachers who did, and to our knowledge, y'all seem to go well. Yeah.
It was mostly the little ones.
So anybody who wanted to wear a mask, they were encouraged to, or if you're not vaccinated, we encourage you to, if you feel comfortable, to do it, but not requiring it. And I think it worked well. So that would be, one of the main local decisions that we make. The only thing that is different is that the president has an executive order, and that's the number 13998, that says that public transportation people are required to wear masks. So says that they can operate at 100% capacity if all passengers are masked. But I got updated guidance today, and I just hadn't updated this one. I think yours might be updated. I forgot to do both. But it said it doesn't matter how much the capacity is. If you're on a school bus, you wear a mask.
Yeah, ours says 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah. So that came through today.
So that means if you just wear a mask when you come home on the school bus in the afternoon?
Yes.
Everybody who's on a bus, and that's going to be to school, from school. It's going to be to your athletic events, and from your athletic events.
Does that mean the football team?
I mean, the football team and
Ooh,
everybody.
would you write him a letter?
Do they have
That's the
hand
president
sanitizer
who
when they
is.
get on the bus?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Yes, they're required, and that's, I think, on one of the next pages. When we get to transportation, that's where I fixed it, was in the transportation
I
piece,
got you.
not on this one. So, yes. But, so I think that's gonna be huge, for people coming back to school. I know that it makes such a difference to be able to see people's faces. You know, when we talk to the principals, when we were doing this, a lot of the principals don't even know what their kids look like because they were only saw them from here down, you know. So we're excited about that.
Can they loosen the restrictions about the masks? You know, like the ones that you had to have the shield on it? Or are they still, it has to be so-and-so or?
No, I mean, I haven't heard anything about shields. I haven't heard anything about it, so.
About shields? You know, you had one
Yeah,
last year.
yeah, yes,
And
yes.
it was a simple mask, but you could see.
Mhm. You wore a shield on the plane?
I sure did.
Okay.
Another mask.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, they haven't talked about that. Students and teachers should have scheduled hand washing with soap and water or hand sanitizer every 2 hours is the recommendation, and after changing classrooms. Teachers should wash their hands or use sanitizer every time a new group comes in. And then the recommendation is to continue with your signs, your informational signs that encourage social distancing and hand washing. Intensifying cleaning and disinfecting. The updated guidance is now that those highly or frequently touched surfaces are cleaned twice a day. So like your light switches, your doors, benches, you know, places that are touched frequently. It says minimize the sharing of materials with students, and then playground and equipment outside should be cleaned as necessary. Last year it was like very specific what you had to do with your football equipment, your baseball equipment, and your outdoor playground equipment. And we kept the same cleaning list that the custodians use to account for those cleanings. All right, so shared communal spaces. It just says limit the use of indoor shared spaces in cafeterias and gymnasiums. Close shared water fountains. Encourage students and staff to bring bottled water from home, sealed until in the building, just like last year. And then we're looking into some water refilling stations that you can kind of convert your, what do you call them, water fountains and make them bottle filling or cup filling, you know.
I guarantee you,
Great.
in high school, they're gonna be gin galore in these bottles. These people here, I don't mean to be rude. Hey, they don't know students.
Hey, well, that's why it says sealed until in the building. And let me tell you, Ms. A.K. Foy is at that front door making sure your bottles
I
are
guarantee you,
sealed.
students, ain't that right, can get stuff out there and secret. I can prove that. Cigarettes.
Well, we now have updated security systems going in all the schools,
So they can't take a little swallow of water before they come in, huh?
it's to be sealed when they come in.
They can have it hidden up in the attic. So serious.
I need a taste test.
I like this bottle one.
Sniff test.
We gotta go.
All right, so our child nutrition program, breakfast, cafeteria, or classrooms can be used for eating breakfast. Each school will decide which model works best for them. And then lunch will be served in the cafeteria. Individual schools will make decisions about using to-go containers and taking food to designated locations for consumption. Big thing is that all students will come through the line in the cafeteria to receive their meals this year. Sanders, anything you want to add about this, or is it?
So this is hot meals this year, hopefully.
Yes, yeah. And it was last year, it just may not have been too hot. By the time it got to
But they
them,
can't sit down and eat in the cafeteria.
Yes,
They can.
They can sit down and eat in the cafeteria.
That's
Good.
gonna be a different world for them.
But they don't have to do it in the classroom. They don't
They do not have to.
like that. None of them like that, I know.
They had, I think the reason why we put that in there is because at the high school level, we had, I don't know, midterm, maybe even later, because the high schoolers just had to go to their classrooms and, you know, we're just isolated. So we had it to where they could choose to go outside and eat, they could choose to sit in the cafeteria, or they could go to the gym.
But they can't eat in the cafeteria.
Yes.
Okay.
And they could at the end of the,
Last
you know,
year.
towards the end of the year last year. but we still fixed everything up prior.
Right.
And so now they
But
have
now
to come through the line to
They
get
serve
their.
it just like normal.
Yes,
Okay.
but if they choose to go elsewhere, it'll be in a to-go container. If they choose to stay in the cafeteria, it'll be
In a plate.
on a regular plate.
And that will be each school makes that, because, you know, the elementary may want to do something different than the junior high or high school. So we're just letting them make the decision, but every kid goes through the line and gets their meal. All right, now transportation. So, here's where I changed it. The presidential executive order requires, it will allows us to operate at 100% capacity. Regardless of capacity, everyone must wear masks on buses. All passengers should use hand sanitizer when entering the bus. So yes, Randy, that's where, when they get on, they'll wash their hands. And then windows should be kept open as much as possible so that you've got airflow. Seating charts should be created and consistently enforced. And I bolded that because this is a place where we had a big problems last year when the kids would swap seats and not sit where, when you go to contact tracing, there were a couple times we had to quarantine the whole bus because they did not maintain seating charts. And so that's something we're going to communicate very heavily this year, is that you have to enforce those seating charts so that we know who to quarantine and who not to. And then this says buses should be cleaned at least once a day. All right, academics. So we do have Chromebooks and technology for one-to-one. The district provides Chromebooks to all students enrolled in Caldwell Parish Public Schools, K-12, and then tablets for pre-K students. In the event that a student is quarantined due to exposure and reliable internet access is not available, the parent may contact the school to check out a MiFi device if we have them available. We had a lot of them, but then we discontinued those as we weren't using them because we didn't want to pay the monthly plan on them all. But we have kept a couple of them active so that in the event that we have, you know, somebody that needs internet, we can give it to them. Student programming determination. So this is a big change from last year, and our recommendation is that all Caldwell Parish School District students are expected to return to in-person classes for the 21-22 school year. Virtual learning will only be offered for limited circumstances, taking into consideration a student's medical needs or family's medical needs, or if they have an IEP or IAP decision, that would be the best placement for them to be at home. We will have an application process for those two circumstances that a committee will determine the eligibility on a case-by-case basis. And so at the back of this, attached to the back,
It's just, it's right behind it. It's gonna be underneath, in their folder. Not attached, underneath. Yeah, that.
okay. So there's a virtual instruction program, and I'm gonna go back and just try to click on that. So we consulted with the surrounding districts to find out kind of what they were doing, and we all pretty much agree that in school is the best place for our kids. And so this letter will go out in the newspaper as soon as possible, plus we'll post it on our website. But we're offering limited virtual instruction. It's very limited. Many students and families have struggled with measures that it takes to be successful during online learning. And these struggles have created more learning gaps. And for these reasons and many more, we must make changes to our current virtual instruction program. We've established new criteria, and that is listed there. You either have a medical condition, which must be documented by a doctor, or you have an IEP or IAP, and so that would be your special needs or 504 students who need virtual instruction. And so we will have those applications available here in the school board office that people can come by and pick up, but they will be due on July 22nd, so that gives us 2 weeks, because we'll have to convene the committee to look through all that paperwork to make a determination about whether or not the child will be eligible for that. Questions about that? That's a big change, but one that we think is absolutely necessary.
so, the next slide, okay, so virtual participation for students who are medically quarantined. I'll say that one of the big problems that we had last year is that you had students who were in-person students who would decide, I'm not coming to school, I'm gonna be virtual today. And so they would hang out at home all day and then log in, or they would hang out at home and they'd log in and not participate. Some did their work, some didn't do their work, and teachers were teaching in-person kids at the same time they were teaching virtual kids, and it's exhausting. And it, for most cases, did not work very well. So we'd like to limit that as much as possible, and get our kids back in class and back on track. But we do know that there are going to be cases where kids have been quarantined because of COVID. So our recommendation is that only students who have tested positive or have been quarantined as a close contact and approved through the school nurse will be eligible for day-by-day virtual learning using Google Classroom and Meet. So in the event of a medical quarantine, students are expected to log in each class period and participate in the classroom discussion and lesson and complete the assignment by the original due date. So no more extended due dates. We got to a point where we had kids turning in 6 weeks worth of assignments on the last day, you know, and then the teachers having to try to get all that graded and caught up, and it just was a nightmare. So they'll have the same original due dates that everybody else has, or follow the sick leave policy that's normal. Student Chromebooks can be checked out for the office, so if a student is medically quarantined, then the parent can come up and check out the device. That's elementary level. Of course, if they're junior high or high school, that might be a little different.
They bring them home, they don't bring them home?
So high school typically did bring theirs home. Junior high, y'all, you know,
They
Ralph?
did.
They did, okay. We do have a lot of damage. Mike, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, we had quite a few, even the new Chromebooks that had to be sent back for repair. Older Chromebooks were stacking up with problems we were having to fix things. And that's at the high school level. That's at high school and junior high. Elementary, we didn't have that many because they didn't take them. It's in the classroom.
So, a school-by-school basis, I mean, a lot of your high school students, junior high kids may be working on things at home, and so it may be, yeah. But, you know, and the thought process there was you might need it to work, or you don't know if you're gonna get sick and you might. But this way, just come to the school, have the parent come and check it out, and then if they need a MiFi and we have them available, they can do that too. But the last bullet here just says students who do not comply with the expectations, so they don't log in, they don't do the work, then they receive no credit for those assignments. We're not gonna have this turn 6 weeks worth of work in at the last minute anymore. It just doesn't do anything but create more problems. And so for teachers, their expectations for posting virtual lessons, we're not going to require them to teach both at the same time anymore, but teachers will only be expected to do virtual lessons if they have a student who is medically quarantined. And so what we're asking is that they post the expectations for virtual learning in their Google Classroom, that they post the daily lesson assignments by 8 o'clock that day, and that they record and post a video of the lesson. That way they can just choose which one to do and post it in there, so it's not going on back and forth, but the student could access it later. And then, you know, like if I teach science, I would only have to post the one science lesson in all of my classrooms. But if I teach a math and a science multiple, then I would just post one for each subject in the classroom. And the teachers are expected to grade those virtual students' lessons in a timely manner and respond to emails or parent questions within one school day, either by email or telephone. So I think that those expectations are going to be a welcomed change to our teachers. All right, student attendance. This is another big issue we fought with last year. So we're reverting back to our original attendance policy. And so elementary students have to be in attendance with we follow those 59,897 minutes. and they're allowed to miss no more than 10 days during the year. So if they miss over 10 days, then they don't receive credit for that school year. They're truant. And that's unexcused absences. If they have a doctor's excuse, then those don't count in those 10 days. For high school, there's your policy numbers, but they have to meet the seat time to get earn a Carnegie credit. And so for high school students, you may not miss more than 4 days per semester. So on day 5 of semester 1, if you have a day 5 unexcused, you have failed that half credit. And the same thing for spring, you're allowed 4 days. And it says the only exceptions to attendance will be those that may be, approved through Angela Gillette as an extenuating circumstance or something like that. But we've got to get our kids back in school every day, unless they're sick. And then our written excuses, we just pulled back up our policy. And so for students to be eligible to receive credit and make up work following an absence, we're reverting back to the parent note that can be sent in. If a student is tardy or absent, the parent needs to write a written excuse, sign and date it, and send it with them. An original doctor's, dentist, or nurse practitioner's excuse must be turned in within 3 days of consecutive absences. And for all excuses, a student's absence must be presented within 3 days of returning. And it's the sole responsibility of the parent to see that all excuses are turned in. So we're just trying to get back to the way we do business. That's it.
Will the teachers teach virtually if they're not at school, or they just have to take their time and bring in
Just
substitutes?
have to take their time. Yes, yes. My recommendation is for our teachers to keep a social, if you're not vaccinated, keep your distance 6 feet. 6 feet is the rule.
Question, will a parent have access to this?
Yes, we will, as once y'all, what do we have, approve the updated operational guidance, we will post it. Yeah, and copy it, put it in the newspaper.
Anybody got any more questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
We got a motion and a second. Do we need a vote call or no? All right, everybody in favor say aye. Item D, approve and discuss land lease bids from June 14th, 2021 meeting, track 16, 80 acres, track 17, 36 acres.
Okay, yay. Well, Mr. Dart did bid correctly. He
Okay.
was gonna pay $375 on the 24 acres each year for 3 years. The 80 acre tract, whenever he bid on it, he thought he had accessibility to it. He does not. There's a private road that goes to it, and he cannot get to the property without a lot of work being done to the road. So he asked to be, for that, bid to be, no,
Canceled.
void, canceled.
Yeah, I talked to him.
So,
He
okay,
said it was very large ruts in the road.
okay. So I mean, I don't know where the property is.
I don't
I
either.
don't know anything more to tell y'all. So, anyway, we do have, whenever we went to lunch today, Kaylee, Carla, and I ran into some people that Kaylee knew, and they were interested in the 24 acre that we had previously bid, that had no bids.
Right.
So we're gonna just re-advertise the 24 acres and we'll throw the 80 acres.
It
in
says
there.
36 on the sheet of paper.
There
We
were
have
three.
another one that's not
Oh,
on
it's
there.
Yeah,
another
there were
one.
three, there were
It's
three,
not on
there were
there.
three.
Lanny
pieces.
didn't
It's the
bid,
one
nobody
that
bid
never
on.
got so
Right.
we didn't.
They talked about
And it was not bid on previously in the previous 3 years.
So they was interested in the 24?
Right. I don't think it's enough to, get too excited about.
No, 24 acres ain't much.
So, but at least it's under lease potentially.
Right.
So hopefully we'll cover the ad that we put in the paper.
Yeah.
So,
So I was just gonna do a motion and second though to approve, Mr. Laney's one that he wants.
All right, do I have a motion that we,
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve that he gets the one that he wants.
Yeah.
and then the other one's no?
And we can excuse the one he doesn't want,
Yeah.
because he can't get to.
We'll re-advertise.
You already did it.
yes, ma'am.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Item E is a financial update.
I don't have anything.
Don't have anything.
So, in the interest of time, because I think Mickey took up all of
I
the time I
know,
needed.
it was not nearly as long as last year's.
All right,
So,
No.
that's you, Monica, head start update.
Not a whole lot going on there either. We are enrolling. We have 19 kids approved on our list. 9 that I've been speaking with this week that need to get some documents in, and they'll probably be there. Which leaves us about 10 on the list that are over income that will enroll as we get more children. July 20th and 21st, we have a big screening and registration day, so we hope that we get some more kids out that day. Other than that, everything, I will say, so down at Kelly, the custodian had left, and the pre-K custodian couldn't start at pre-K when summer school was there, so we had him there to help with breakfast. He went to Kelly and worked and came back to help after lunch. And he got all the classrooms done and the halls and the office areas, and Delinda said it looks better than it's ever looked. So he was real proud. You know, I told him that they were bragging on him how well he'd done. So now he's starting to work on the pre-K. So he's really worked hard and done a lot. So we're glad that he's definitely.
Who is that?
Mr. Jamie Martinez.
Okay.
Which we've kind of been juggling custodians all summer to go and wax a different, like, they would like power wax. Go to
Jamie's
one
the son.
location and everybody would help, and then go to another location
Juanita's
because of summer
wife,
camp.
right? Juanita, yeah.
We always call him Herman.
Is it Kim and Don?
So this is the oldest.
I know. I think I know.
I
Yeah.
thought he was working at the
His
kids.
birthday.
He was. He transferred to pre-K last year.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Monica. All right, item G is district leaders update.
Peter, you got anything?
I don't, we're shut down. All my employees are at home enjoying summer, so
Where they need to be.
that's where they need to be. I'm the only one going, so.
Yeah. Kim?
I mean, mine aren't all home, but principals are busy, really busy right now. We've had curriculum meetings, so the teachers have been coming in and planning. This is our busiest time, actually, of the year, because we're getting ready to get school started and planning and getting all the new teachers in place and working on filling spots and getting curriculum mapped out. So they've been busy, but they've been off too. So they're getting paid to come in to do that. So it's been good. All of our meetings have been very good.
Do we have all the teaching positions filled?
Almost.
Look, we're getting closer.
Very close. A lot closer than we were this time last week.
We need a geometry teacher at the high school.
Yeah.
I will throw that out there. That's a big hole to fill. Rebecca?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time this week contacting parents. I think I probably had, more sort of a disproportionate population of kids that were virtual. So I've been trying to call parents and kind of make plans for next year. And I think a lot of the kiddos that were virtual, that get services from my department, they really want to come back to school. Their parents feel safe. We have a couple of kids who have been vaccinated just due to their conditions so that they can be safe to come back to school. So I'm so excited that we're going to get to see some of these kids in person, because as great as virtual was, it's no replacement for being around kids your own age and having that experience at school with your peers, with your teachers and all that. So we're just excited working on that, so making plans for some kids that we haven't seen in, it'll be a year and a half for some of them. So we're glad to have them back, and we're just getting geared up for next year.
Ralph?
Ditto.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't talk about the summer sports camps. I don't know how much. I know we talked about the summer learning camp, but the summer sports camps were a huge success. We had over 400 students participate in the camps over the 4-week period. The last week we had over 125 kids between football and cheer camp. So it grew each week with more and more participation, and the sports and the clubs and all the different activities. We're very thankful for the fundraising activity. I believe we provided a service for the parents in the afternoon, and the kids had fun, and, from everything that I heard, everything went super with the sports camps in the afternoons.
Well, I can tell you having 3 great grandkids within the program, man, they went berserk. My son that's out at Junior Central, runs great, my son, plays football, man. Ooh, man, he normally is a quiet person, but man, he was off the chart. They really loved that.
That's good.
Because one of the things I believe, when you use summer camp instead of summer school,
Right.
they were they were impressed with that. Real impressed.
Do they sleep well at night?
Yeah, 'cause sometimes my great grandson, he'll come to spend the night with me. Normally he'll stay up and watch TV, but he get to bed and go to sleep.
More about.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, I was gonna say success, yes.
Michael, you got anything on technology yet?
We've been busy
Yeah.
last month. We are on the next to last school, putting in all the boards and cameras. And the big news was we changed over to our new internet service provider with minimal problems. And right now, everything today got finalized, and the telephone's all working, so we're all back up and running. And we'll be running better when we get our Category 2 budget finalized and finished, because it'll update some of the equipment inside the buildings that will make it even faster.
So was that the people that was up and down the road digging and stuff?
Yeah, they're all done. They better be done.
And Kaylee can attest to this, I come down and get my hours, and she put me on one when they was talking about the internet, where it was saying 3 out of 4 students in Louisiana didn't have access to the internet. And another thing that caught my attention was finances. In Louisiana, our financial situation is kind of loaded up, Normally, lots of people, the guy was saying, a lot of the people don't understand this because they're not involved in it, so they just, oh well, what are they doing with the money? But I admit, normally I just come down and give them points. But,
You actually listened?
yeah, I did.
Well, on that line, I will say for IT, Merrick was asked to serve on a local committee that Mark Black, is the president of the police jury, asked her to serve on. And I think they met today at lunch to try to work together with all of the departments to improve our broadband. And so to really, work together to try to see what we can do to get internet here in Olive
That's
Parish.
something James Carroll went to.
Along the lines he was.
kinda
Was he
watched
there?
that.
this time?
Ryan Chapel, wasn't he real involved with that?
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that too, I guess we can move into mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I attended a meeting at the Shepis the other day that stemmed from the work that Ryan Chappell did with this new plant that they're having, come in. And the new chancellor at Delta Community College there, Mr. Judith Ann was there too. He came and we had workforce development, we had K-12, we had the community college and the industrial development board members there, but really talked about what types of jobs this plant is going to bring in and what we can do to make sure that our graduates are ready to fill those holes. And so it's really trying to make sure that everything is aligned from, pre-K to 12 all the way through workforce development and Delta Community College so that we're ready to supply this plant with workers. So that was super exciting.
That's great.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So, is that all I have?
I would like to say that Andrew played basketball, and I was fortunate enough to get to go to the basketball camp at college. Coach Simmons was there, and I want y'all to know that the athletic director, Coach Adams, Coach Dallion, and Coach Williams, they did an outstanding job. I'd be anything you ever seen in your life, you just have to see it to believe it. They had 2 concession stands, of course, I never moved away from that door for 3 solid days. We even had Coach Simmons to come back from Tomato Patch to help us out, because we was a little short on referees. But I want you to know that it was something.
That's awesome.
And at the end of the last game, River Oaks, I think we played River Oaks, maybe. The principal bragged on me. He said, I've never seen anything running smooth this
Ah,
week.
that's wonderful.
And one thing.
Is that the thing they had where they had 23 teams there? Is that what you're talking about?
There's a boys,
I didn't
team
see
game.
it.
And then, I mean, it was some basketball games, wasn't it?
Hmm?
That's great.
If you paid $5, it was a fundraiser, but you could use it at both doors.
Okay.
And there wasn't a big attendance, but because people were working on it. But it was splendid, I was really
I drove by several times and there were lots of
Oh,
I'm
people
talking about
there,
didn't know what was
so.
going on. They
Yeah.
should have stopped.
Oh, man, it was something.
Well, good, thank you for that.
Junior varsity, varsity.
Do I hear a motion with adjourn?
I so moved.
Second.
Good deal. Under an hour.
Do we have a band teacher?
We did Ian Lee.
Ian Lee.
Ian Lee, yes. He graduated from Stockwell High School.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
Chad Lee.
Chad Lee.
Okay.
His youngest boy.
He's got two of them.
Yeah.
Yes. His other one's on his teacher at high school.
Next Thursday, next Friday.
Oh, yeah, how you doing, man?
Yes,
Next Wednesday.
That's coming back.
Got a phone with you?